All right, we'll call the meeting to order. This June 18th meeting is the first time we met since February, and it's been a while. Thank you all for attending, and I know we've been going through a lot these last few months. So thank you for attending, and we have a lot to discuss tonight. There's a lot on the agenda. And then I want to thank Barbara and Amanda also for being here, and Kristen as well to listen in on what's happening. And Barbara will give us an update on the Cal Ave Public Art Master Plan. Okay, with roll call, we'll do roll call. Lauren?
Present.
Nia?
Present.
Sinya?
Present.
And Ian?
Present.
And there's no agenda changes, requests, or deletions. Any oral communications? Do we have anybody from the public who want to make any oral communications?
So I see we have two attendees. Do either of them wish to speak to an item not on the agenda?
Okay.
If so, please raise your hand. I don't see anything.
I don't see anything. Okay.
I
And
would
we'll
like to make a comment, a public comment.
Yes.
So my name is Nia Taylor, and although I am a member of the Public Art Commission, I am also a resident of Palo Alto. And I just wanted to state that I am in favor of keeping the number of commissioners that we have to, I believe, sorry, it's 8 or 7? Seven, thank you. To 7, I believe that diversity is very important when it comes to public art, and that I think it's really important to have a diverse commission to look at the public art program that we have in the city of Palo Alto. And by reducing the number of commissioners, I think would deeply change the public art that we get to promote. Or that I, excuse me, feel that the need to, that the city should have the capacity and excuse me, this is a new experience, but I do strongly believe that keeping the number of commissioners to 7 would enable more opportunity for more diverse works of art to be displayed in the city, and it will make our city even more vibrant in the future. So thank you.
Thank you, Nia. And that's an item, that non-action I will be discussing later, but we'll keep those comments in mind. Thank you very much. Okay, so we have approval of the minutes of the last Public Art Commission meeting, which was February 20th, 2020, which seems like a generation ago. So we get an approval for the minutes.
I move.
Okay, and a second.
I second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. All those opposed?
Aye.
And all those abstaining. Okay, motion passes. Thank you. And then staff comments.
Sure. I also just want to give a brief reminder, since this is the first time we've done this in this kind of format, that that we need to keep the cameras on, so there's a quorum of commissioners on camera at all times, please. So while we hope that you'll stay muted so the background noise doesn't interfere, people want to see you. So thank you. So as far as announcements, the Public Art Commission is undergoing a recruitment. They have reopened it. And so that will be open through July 21st at 4:30 p.m. is when applications are due. And the second item, which hopefully has popped up on your all's screen, is Fire Station 3, the artwork by Pete Beeman, Welcome Wagon, is uncovered and available to the public at this time. So if you're going to actually turn the crank, I recommend you utilize hand sanitizer. And that's it for our announcements.
Hey, thank you very much. And now we'll go to the first action item, which is election of officers, which we were supposed to do back in January, and it got postponed and postponed. And then the pandemic hit. And so now in June, we'll be doing the election. So the The first election will be for chair, and then the second election will be for the vice chair. And as chair, I'll give you a few comments of what the job entails. There's a monthly phone call with Elise to set up the agenda for the upcoming meeting. And then there may be other items during the month that you may have to be involved in. And one that comes right to mind is this pandemic now that Elise and I have been on the phone quite a bit lately, talking about things that are happening and things that we really need to bring forward right now because of different things that were happening and constraints that were happening. So generally it's a couple hours a month with the phone call and maybe some other duties that you have to do. And so that's it for the chair. And then plus also running the meetings.
Okay, and Chair Miyaji, I can see that Commissioner Klaus has a raised hand before we jump to the election.
Sorry, no, that was just to make a nomination.
Okay, got it. Before we begin, I was hoping to just go through the guidelines, instructions very briefly with you, just to kind of refresh the voting order in everybody's mind. So the chair will open the floor to nominations for the position of chair first, and then for the position of vice chair. So we are, the commission is voting twice. Commissioners nominate one commissioner at a time. The person nominated must be present at the meeting. A commissioner may enter their own name in nomination. It's important to remind that the commissioner, the chair asks the nominated person if they're willing to accept the nomination. When there are no further nominations from the floor, the chair asks for the motion to close the nominations. The motion is second. So here's, I believe I sent everybody a phone number. So please cast your vote by texting the name of the nominated person to the phone number I sent you earlier. Staff then will announce only the winner and the number of votes, casting the votes for the nominee. Then we'll repeat the procedure for the nomination of vice chair. The chair will open the floor for the election. The commissioners nominate one commissioner at a time. The chair will ask the nominated person if they are willing to accept the nomination. When there are no further nominations on the floor, the commission can proceed with voting. Is everything clear? Do you have any questions? Okay.
Thank you, Nadia. Okay, we're going to open the floor to nominations for the chair position. Any nominations?
I would like to nominate Ben. It's been a pleasure working with him this year, and he's really got momentum. It would be great to have him lead again this upcoming year. Thank you.
Okay, then I accept the nomination. Thank you, Lauren. Any other nominations?
I believe Commissioner Klaus has his hands up. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Ian?
I'd like to nominate Nia Taylor. I don't think I need advocate for her because we've all served with her. But I'll just say for my part that I think, well, I've learned from everyone on the commission, Nia has consistently struck at the value of art in our community while continuing to question and push us to do better about how we do it. And for me, sometimes speed of meetings is important, but also taking the time to ask the appropriate questions and listen is. And so I would nominate Nia for that.
Okay, thank you, Ian. And Nia, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I would accept the nomination. Thank
All
you.
right,
Ian.
thank you. Any other nominations? Okay, we have a motion to close nominations.
I move we close nominations for chair of the Public Art Commission.
And get a second?
A second.
Thank you. Nominations are closed. And now if you would send your vote to Elise, and we'll then move on to the vice chair position.
Okay, thank you, everybody. That was nice and quick. So the votes are as follows. For Ben, there were 3 votes, and for Nia, there were 2 votes.
Okay, thank you very much, Elise.
Mhm.
And then we'll move on to the vice chair position. And do we have any nominations for vice chair? I nominate, I'll go ahead and start, and I'll nominate Lauren for vice chair. And Lauren, do you accept the nomination?
I do. It's been a lot of fun working with you. Thank you.
Any other nominations for vice
Commissioner
chair?
Claus has
Ian?
his hand up.
Ian?
Yeah, I would like to nominate Nia Taylor for vice chair for the same reasons, her dedication to public art and her ability to question exactly how we're doing it at this moment. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ian. Nia, do you accept the nomination?
I'll accept again. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other nominations for vice chair? I have a motion to close nominations.
Motion to close nomination.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, send your vote to Elise, if you will, please.
Okay, so the results of that were in favor of Commissioner Gordon with 3 votes and Commissioner Taylor with 2 votes.
All right, thank you very much, Elise, and congratulations, Lauren.
Yes,
Thank you.
congratulations to all.
All right, thank you for the elections. It's been a while, and now we've got that behind us. And item number 2, which is a temporary public art initiatives. And Elise?
Thank you so much. So this project initially came to mind in response to COVID and trying to help our commercial corridors recover, draw people back. And the idea was that we would do these temporary murals, with themes of resiliency and community and vibrance. That this would be a pilot project, something that could be installed with socially distancing. We could get permission from building owners to apply this material, so it would be printed and basically stuck on the building. It could be easily removed without affecting the building. See how it goes. We found this material that is a lot more ecologically friendly than vinyl. It's actually made out of aluminum, so it can be completely recycled at the end of the project. In light of Black Lives Matter and recent conversations about our community, we also wanted to expand that dialogue to include diversity and inclusion. So I open it up to the commission. There's my dog. I open it up to the commission to talk about, what parameters do we want to have around this call to artists or the process? What is the messaging we want to put in that call? We're estimating an artist stipend of $2,500 per artist for 8 artists. And then the rest of it is fabrication and installation. And the total cost is $32,000. And so again, this was seen as a pilot project. We'll try it out, see how it works. If we want to do more of them, the community really likes them. If we want to expand the messaging, this is a first step in probably many temporary projects we'll want to take them.
Okay, thank you, Elise. And then for comments, I think we'll just go around the table and I'll go to each person. If you have any comments, you can make them. After all comments are made by the commissioners, if you have any further comments, just raise your hand and we'll go to you. Okay, let's start with Nia.
I think it's a lovely idea. I think we should move forward with it.
Thank you. Sinya?
I second Nia's comment on this. And I apologize for speaking out of order, but I was kind of thinking about the election of officers earlier and the fact that as Ian has pointed out, Nia really brings a very unique perspective to the board, to the commission. And I was wondering if there are additional roles that we can create to highlight her contribution in that regard.
That's a good point, and that's something to take under consideration. And I'll discuss that with Lauren, and I will discuss that with Elise and see what we can come up with.
That'd be great.
Continue. Okay, Ian?
Moving back and forth between the agenda and the screen. We're just talking about issue number 2, temporary public art initiatives, or we folded 2 and 3 together and no?
No, two
Just two.
by itself, yes.
Okay, I second Nia and Nia's thinking it's a great idea.
Thank you. Lauren?
I agree with my fellow commissioners. I'm wondering, so there's 8 artists in different places throughout the city. This is a great opportunity to get a lot of different artwork. What is the call going to say? Of course, temporary, and are we looking at 6 months, 12 months? And then what are these areas in the city where these individual artists will have their artwork?
Okay, thank you, Lauren.
Thank you for asking. We were thinking primarily of the commercial corridors, so around University Avenue and California Avenue, maybe 4 and 4 to divide them evenly. As I said, it's a pilot. I estimate that these will be there between 6 months and a year. We have to see how this material works. We haven't used it before,
Right.
how they age, how people respond to it. But that's sort of the time estimate. We're thinking 6 months to 1 year. And if
Right.
people like it, we can do more, we can do them bigger. And we could even, if we had a partnership with a building owner who wanted to post ongoing rotating murals there are more durable solutions.
Okay.
So again, it's a pilot. We just have to try it out and see.
That's
Okay.
great. I'm glad we can move forward with that.
Okay, thank
I
you.
thought there was a raised hand, but I guess there's not. I
I'm
just
sorry, go
wanted-
ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry. There isn't a raised hand feature, right? Like I thought there were. Okay. So I just wanted to add, Lauren made me think of something that our last panel that we had. Can I speak? Is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah, you
Okay.
froze up a little.
Okay,
Yes.
our last panel that we had for the signage, not signage, but the barriers around the buildings. I'm sorry, I'm having a little brain freeze, I think, right now, just being on
The
Zoom.
construction plans at California
Construction,
Avenue.
thank you, yes.
Yeah.
And the call was for California artists, which I thought was a really cool thing. And so we don't have to do it for this particular public art project, but it's something to think about. I do like thinking of ways that we can not limit, but think about different groups of people that we can maybe target for various public art. And so that was kind of a fun thing, California. So just something to think about if we, going down the line, are there groups of artists maybe that are underrepresented perhaps, or artists rather than it always being a national call? Do we want to limit it to certain groups of people? Not because we want to be selective, but also just giving other people maybe opportunities that might not otherwise think about participating.
All right, good, thank you. Some good points. And I agree. I think this is a good idea. And to fold in the diversity and maybe COVID-19 into some of the temporary things and be proactive to what's happening now instead of reactive. And if we do expand the project, this initiative, I like to see to go out into the neighborhoods as well, because there's a lot of opportunities out in the neighborhoods. Hey, do I have any other comments? Senya, I don't know if you have your hand up or. Okay, no other comments? Okay, can I have a motion for this item, please? Motion to approve this item?
I move that we approve the expenditure of up to $32,000 for a call for 8 artists for 8 different temporary murals throughout Palo Alto.
All right, thank you. We have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Okay, opposed, abstain? Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. The next item is Black Lives Matter mural. And Elise, if you can give us some background on this, and I'm not sure if any of you watched the city council meeting with this, where they discussed this item, but they discussed this for quite a few minutes. So it's quite important to the city that this happens. Okay, Elise?
Thank you, Chair Miyagi. Very early Tuesday morning, the council made a motion to direct the Public Art Commission to explore public art honoring diversity and work with our community to paint Black Lives Matter or a similar message near City Hall as soon as possible. So immediately after that, staff started reaching out to other cities who have done similar projects. This, I believe, is the Washington, D.C. one that sort of kicked it off. We also looked at a number of different models in other cities that seem to be very specific to their cities and unique, while still supporting that message, and also commissioning some of the very artists who are out of work at this moment, and commissioning some of our Black artists and artists of color. So we did reach out to Commissioner Taylor, who has graciously stepped up to be the lead on this project. We also reached out to former Commissioner, resident and Black artist in Palo Alto, Aline Richter, and I believe she's in the audience somewhere out there today, to get some of their feedback. And some of the thinking was to let them do the selection and co-lead the process with the city's assistance. We have put together, since there is a timeline, there's an urgency to try and do this extremely quickly. It's very different than what our normal processes and timelines look like. So we found out most other cities did their recruiting, got the word out through social media in a matter of days, and were able to turn this around. So that's the kind of model we're looking at. We do have a very quick and basic call drafted that would be a very easy application process. Should anyone have any challenges doing that, we will make ourselves available to assist any artists who may have technical issues or need additional help to get that in. So what we're thinking is that we could commission potentially 16 different artists, like in some of these models, to do each of the letters across Hamilton, on that block in front of City Hall. And that it would likely, by paying each artist a stipend and the paint and any materials included, I don't believe we would come near the $20,000 mark, but we were requesting up to $20,000 just for any unanticipated cost overruns that we might run into.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Elise. It's good background. And is there any comments? Let's start with Lauren.
I saw a raised hand from a member of the public, so I think we should follow the protocol and invite the attendee to speak. Let me just set this setting. Just give me a second. I will stop sharing my screen for a second in order to do that.
Yeah, I believe we have one hand raised on this item.
Stefania Pomponi.
Yes.
Can you hear my voice and can you hear it? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
great. So Stefania, you will have up to 3 minutes to address the commission. I will share my screen and turn on the timer for your convenience. Okay, so give me a second, please. Stefania, go ahead, please.
Hi, I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking this on. I was the person who started the petition. And I've also served on a municipal art commission and was chair in my final year of service. So I understand and appreciate deeply the work that you're doing. 10 days ago, I watched with concern as City Council member Lydia Koo brought up the subject of painting Black Lives Matter on a downtown street and was essentially dismissed by the City Council and City Manager. That planted a seed that this project could and should be done in our city, and that we could do it quickly, because showing solidarity and support with Black members of our community is the right thing to do, especially now during this time of revolution and renewed fighting for civil rights. And as I think you've all seen with the petition, as of today, almost 1,500 Palo Altans or signatories in support of this initiative have signed the petition. And I just wanted to share some of the comments so you could hear them directly. One person said, Palo Alto cannot and should not wait to show its commitment to standing up for Black lives. Another said, as an Asian American, I believe in this movement and absolutely support our Black neighbors. I hope this is only the beginning of many changes to come and a continuous reminder of what needs to be prioritized. And then I live in East Palo Alto, a community created by redlining not that long ago. The crises raised by Black Lives Matter are real and present in our community today. And Palo Alto, of all places, needs to more visibly recognize and support justice. I really just want to again say thank you for taking this on quickly. And that you understand, I see that you understand the urgency and the words Black Lives Matter specifically painted on Hamilton Avenue in downtown Palo Alto, adjacent to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Plaza, will also serve as a reminder to our entire city, our city council, the mayor, city manager, commissioners, and especially the police department, that our commitment to social justice and civil rights must not be performative. And I'm noting that no members of the city council nor this commission that I'm aware of identify as Black. So I feel especially called to make this happen and make it happen quickly. This street mural is a call to action for all of us. And I thank you so much and urge you to make the project Black-led from start to finish and have it be completed by July 4th. Thank you so much for your time and attention to this matter.
Thank you very much for your comments. And thank you for starting the petition to bring this forward. Thank you very much. Okay, any other public from the public want to speak?
Can I comment on Stefania, just a quick comment that she made? Yes, okay,
Yeah, go
Stefania,
ahead.
this is Nia Taylor. I just want to let you know I am Black. I actually identify as African-American on my father's side, although I don't always feel the need to identify on the commission as African-American, but I am African-American. So I just wanted to say that, and I'm proud of it, so.
Okay, thank you, Nia. Any other public comments from the public? No? Okay, thank you. Then we'll go to the commissioners and let's start with Lauren.
Hi, I just wanted to say thank you, Stefania, for speaking up. And thank you for Nia and Aline for helping get this project done. Thank you so much. I have a few questions. Well, I do want to thank Nadia and Elise too, because I know you're really fast tracking this and I know it will be a lot of work. So my question is, when we put the call out and we are trying to get, did you say 16 artists? Will that slow down the process by trying to get 16 versus 1 or 5 or I understand the reason why. So each letter has an individual artist, but I'm just wondering, I know we're trying to get this process or this thing project completed, and hopefully by the 4th of July, will we be able to do that? I guess that's my question.
That is a great question. And that is something we've been discussing a lot in the last days and hours even. As I mentioned, there is a sense of urgency to act quickly. The council and the city manager are very much in support of moving with this quickly. I think there is definitely a push from the community to do it quickly. And what we've seen in other communities is they have been able to do it quickly. So we have identified some outlets already where we can get the word out. Most other cities have been able to do this through social media very quickly and make the application process very easy and have, you know, whether it's Commissioner Taylor and Aline Richter, and they may pull in some other people to do online juring, but have that turned around quickly, and then we can just facilitate a painting day. And if we were really aggressive with the schedule, we might be able to pull it off as soon as the end of next week is what we were hoping. So some of that just depends on, you know, what the commission determines they would like to do and what they want to support, and we'll move forward. And we've gotten all assurances from the city that all departments will jump in to expedite this.
That is great news. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And of course, I'm here to help. So I'll just stay tuned.
And
Thank you,
commissioners,
Lauren. Thank you,
excuse me,
Lauren. Thank you, Elise. And I think we had somebody from the public also wanting to speak.
yes, thank you. I will bring this up. Ella Richter. Yes, please. I can see that you unmuted yourself. Please go ahead and address the commission. You'll have up to 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, I'm sorry. I was waving my hand because I thought you couldn't see me. And then I was pressing the hand button. Anyway, I'm here now. So I can speak. So I'm Allie Richter, and I'm a former commissioner. As a matter of fact, I was a former chair. So that gives you something to strive for, Nia. And I'm also African-American, and I'm also a member of this community. And I graduated high school here. I went across the street to what we call the Community College Stanford. I got my PhD at Berkeley. So I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. But I think that I wanted to tell Sephonia, I think that was marvelous of her to go out and to do what she did. And I'd like to give my support to this project and work with Nia and the commission. And I've already started doing some research. So Nia, I have help for you and any of the commissioners who wanted to jump in on this. And I think we can complete the project in time. So I just wanted to introduce myself to the new commissioners.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ali.
Great to meet you.
All right, so let's go to Nia.
So I'm excited for this project. I think it's going to be a wonderful challenge that I know we can do. And the reason I'm using challenge is because I know that sometimes with the city, we do have various roadblocks we have to jump over, but I think this is really good for future projects as well as this current project, that we can move things ahead a little bit faster and stay with the times. Oftentimes with public art, things take a little longer than we hope, but maybe this will expedite not only this project, but future projects. I'm looking forward to it. And I think the one thing that I'm thinking a lot about, and that I'm excited to work with Ali and others on, is who are calling out. We want to obviously call out those who identify as Black or African American, but we also know that we might have to open that up a little bit depending on how many people respond to our call. So we're I'm cognizant of that, and I also just want to make sure that it represents, you know, who the city of Palo Alto is as a community too, and making sure that if possible, we could even focus our artist call to even very more local to East Palo Alto, even Menlo Park, but maybe even make it smaller so we make sure that the people who should have their voice heard has their voice heard. So I'm looking forward to this really unique project.
Hey, thank you, Nia.
Project, so.
Thank you, Nia, and thank you for stepping up to help lead this project. It's a great thing you're doing. Thank you. Sinya?
I'm super excited about this project. I think this is, I mean, I just think this is going to add a lot to the city, and on such an expedited schedule. I just have nothing but appreciation for the teams that are working on this. So whatever I can do to help, I'm happy to contribute.
Hey, thank you, Sonia. Ian?
Yeah, I too would like to thank Nia and Ali and also Stefania for taking the lead on this with the staff, namely, and also the commission and support, obviously. I wonder, Elise, you had a phrase there that I thought was helpful just in trying to make sure that we get this right and do it in an honorable fashion, which was that part of what we're able to do will depend on some of the decisions the commission makes. And the petition had 3 follow-up requests that are also part of the petition, I guess. One of which was about leadership, which it seems like we're doing well on. One of them was about the art itself, and the third was about timeliness. And so I wonder, as we go forward, and as Nia and Ali help us all think about the ways that we can do this, that obviously it's important we keep those in mind. But for those of us on the commission, it would help us know which proposals are going to fulfill those requests in some ways. And if we ever are looking at a trade-off, to Lauren's point, between what the art looks like and needing a deadline, I think it would be helpful to be explicit about that, so that we can really be transparent about the decisions we're making and try to fulfill all 3, but understand some of the spaces in which we're working.
Hey, thank you, Ian. And too, I echo what everybody else has been saying. I think this is a wonderful project. That Palo Alto is kind of maybe one of the, possibly the first city in the Bay Area to do something like this. I think Sacramento has done something, but it was on the lawn in front of the Capitol building. It wasn't actually on the street. And it's wonderful that City Council and the city manager are both behind this wholeheartedly. So we can move, and we want to move with all due haste and get this done by 4th of July at the latest, and hopefully before that. So thank you all for volunteering to help. I will volunteer as well to help with anything I can do to get this project really moving and get the artists on board. And I think it's a good idea that the artists have been out of work, and this will be a stipend to get them to get some money to them as well. Okay, thank you very much. Can I have a motion to approve this motion?
I move.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All right, thank you. And all in favor of the Black Lives Matter mural, please vote aye.
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 All right, nay, abstain. Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. This is a project I'm really looking forward to. This is going to be a really, really good project for the city. All right, thank you all for that. Now we'll go into the non-action items. And now we'll call in Barbara and with the California Avenue Public Art Master Plan.
So while Nadia gets them on screen, some of you all may remember Barbara Goldstein. She was one of the dynamic duo who created our Public Art Master Plan in 2016 with Gail Goldman. She has her team with her today, Amanda and Quinn, who you'll see on the screen, and we're happy to have Barbara back working with her again. She is very familiar with Palo Alto and has done master plans in many different communities, but we know we are probably her favorite. And so we're excited for her to do the California Avenue Master Plan. When she was selected with her team, it was pre-COVID. And so we had all these thoughts that we would have meetings in the CalAv district with, several people in those rooms, and we can't do that now. So they came forward with a great platform called Co-Urbanize, and we've completely had to pivot what that community engagement looks like. And at the same time, the Avenue is really evolving and changing as it's opening back up. And so it's an exciting time to think creatively and engage artists in thinking about how art might play a role in helping revitalize that district. The recommendations that come from that plan, short, medium, and long-term recommendations, we're hopeful that we will have municipal percent for art funding, but if not, we also have funding that has been pooled from private development in that district that could potentially be used to carry out some of those recommendations. So with that, I think I will turn it over to Barbara and her team.
Okay, thank you very much for having us. I'm going to turn this over to Amanda and Quinn almost immediately, but I'd like to introduce them. They'll introduce themselves, but Amanda has been working with me for about a year, and she's got a background in art history and working in a number of different museums and institutions. Quinn Mai has been working with me full-time, well, as full-time as any of us are working since March. She started a week before this shelter in place, so we barely had a chance to meet face-to-face in real life, but it's working out really well. And what's been the greatest thing about working with these two women is that they really have some great ideas about community outreach and how we might really think about what's happening now as an opportunity to try some new things. So I'm going to turn it over to Amanda and Quinn, and they will share their presentation with you.
Great, thank you, Barbara and Elise. Thank you, all of you, for being here this evening with us. We're excited to share what we've been working on and up to date, and kind of the next steps from here and what that looks like. So as Elise and Barbara said, we're working in partnership with the Public Art Program staff. We are Barbara Goldstein Associates, as also Art Builds Community. So you'll see this logo, Art Builds Community, on marketing efforts as we move forward in the next few months with our engagement. So we want to share this with you now so you know who we are. So these are our images here. It'll show Barbara's going to move forward and be our project manager, and I am the project lead with this project. As Barbara said, I have experience with research and community engagement, a lot of cultural programs here in the South Bay. Quinn is our marketing director. She has incredible experience with cultural programs and public participation programs. So really excited to work with you guys on this one. Next slide. Thank you. So the Cal Avenue District Public Art Master Plan, what is it going to do? So the goal is that it's going to really strengthen the unique cultural identity that's there already. We want it to encourage tourism while also encourage outside tourism from other states, other parts of the world, right? We get so many visitors here in the Bay Area, but we want to encourage them to come to California Avenue, as well as the Palo Alto residents themselves and the cities that surround Palo Alto. Lastly, we wanted to be able to support the economic development for the business community. So our strategy, what are we going to be doing? So this plan is really, when we started this plan is supposed to be looking at the future of the district, 3 to 5 years from now. What does that mean? Of course, that is still part of the strategy, but we have been really focusing in the immediate time, what is happening with COVID and the response to that pandemic. We're also going to be inviting the residents, artists, the business owners to share their ideas on how the arts can really impact the district as it reopens. We want to include temporary and permanent artwork. And then, as Elise mentioned, we really want to gather community input during this shelter in place through Co-Urbanize, which is an incredible engagement tool that's online, and Quinn's going to be talking about it in just a few minutes. So next slide. Our outreach so far, we've been able to, with Zoom, we've been able to have really great meetings with city staff and artists. So here we did have a meeting on May 7th with different city staff leaders from Public Works, city manager, and transportation. And these are the questions we asked. How will Cal Avenue continue business during social distancing? And this is before we knew that the street was going to reopen. The second question was, if the streets are closed, are there ways to work with artists to increase the visibility of this district, to continue to encourage the community to visit it and support the businesses there. So these are the things we heard. It was really a great conversation. We heard to keep the community up to date on changes for the district during shelter in place, so that consistency of communication. We also heard, public art can support the street closures, which was really great, and to have compassion, to continue to have compassion for this community. Lastly, one of the questions that we heard from staff was, how do we build a community that works for everybody? So I think we all kind of, listening to the commissioners, this is all the same. We all have that same feeling, right? So the second art focus group meeting we had was with some artists. There was a call out to artists that that are part of Palo Alto in some capacity, have been a part of public art here in the city. And so we were able to get a few to join us on this meeting, and it was taped, so it was recorded, and it will be available for everybody to view once we put the engagement tool out to the public. But this was the discussion questions that we have here. How do you see art enlivening the California Avenue district as it reopens? And how do you see art enhancing the district going into the future, right? So we really brought the question to the artists of the 3 to 5 year plan. What we heard was the use of technology, right? We're in the Bay Area. How do we use technology to really get public participation in a creative way? The really fun way of using treasure hunts or creative projects that brings community together to interact in the district. And then we also heard the use of public art to reclaim Cal Avenue as a public space. And then the last two is the artists can create a toolkit for the outdoor dining areas. And this is, I think, still something that can be a consideration, though the streets are slowly opening up. And we had Coverly artists a part of the conversation, so they did really ask for that opportunity to engage with the avenue. So our next slide, please. Our next focus group is going to be next week, and it'll be with the business merchants. We're really excited to hear from them because we do know that California Avenue has been open on the weekends to encourage the community to come and support and have dinner outside with family. This is the question that we have prepared. How can the arts be used to support the economic development as the district emerges from the current pandemic? But we understand that a lot more questions are probably going to come throughout the conversation. Next slide. I'm going to pass it on to Quinn now, and she's going to share the marketing timeline.
You have to unmute, Quinn. Unmute yourself.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Amanda. I just want to share with everyone a little more about Co-Organize. So this platform is very exciting because a lot of developers, planners, community organizations use this platform to engage the community in a very productive and organized real-time conversation. And with the use of this platform, it allows for participants to sign on, create a login, sign on, and they visit the first page, which is this map. And this map is bordering the California Avenue district, and they're allowed to hover over the map and then place pins on whatever location they desire to place it at. And with that comes the categories of, you see up here, of adding an art opportunity. So what art, public art, kinds of types of public art would they like to see. The red pins right here are the existing artworks that are already there in the district. And the purple category are text message feedbacks, which will allow for participants to participate through their phone. With this website, they can gather all the information and updates with this project by subscribing to the newsletter, getting updates with our blog, getting timeline updates of big milestones to the project. So for one would be this meeting. And they in turn can also comment. similar as they would do for other social media platforms. As you can see, this is an example of a pin that I have made for existing artwork. And you can see that participants can support if they are in support of a comment, and they can reply at the same time. And these comments are done, again, in real time, real conversations, and they are also moderated. Moving along, this is an example of an interactive engagement sign. You'll see here that this sign has one of 3 questions that we will be posting around in different access ways into the district. And so there are 3 questions, there will be 6 signs. And the intent of this sign is basically for anyone biking, walking, taking their socially distant health walk. They're able to come across this sign, read it, and then participate in that very moment if they choose to do so. So by texting that number on their phone, they're able to text their feedback or comment to the question, or they're able to leave a voicemail message to the comment or to the question. And in turn, those text messages and voicemail messages will be translated onto the co-urbanized site as a pin. And in addition, there are also translation options that come with co-urbanized. So there is access at many different points. So to conclude and wrap up, this campaign of using co-urbanized, we would like to recommend of using a 6-week campaign. The first week, we would like to focus on stakeholder participation. And when we mean stakeholders, we mean the focus group meetings that we have had prior to the launch of the campaign. We would like to invite those attendees back to help explore the site before it goes public, explore, use, pre-populate with their suggestions and comments. And so what that does is that once we launch it to the general public, when the general public comes on, they'll see it already in use. They're not going to be scared to be that first one to engage, in hopes that, you know, maybe they'll be inspired, and maybe, you know, one idea that's already been commented also is similar to what they would like to see. And so within week 2 to week 6 is that push to the general public of creating awareness through social media campaigns with Instagram and Facebook. We're pushing basically everything to co-urbanize, having newsletter updates to our networks, from our network to the Palo Alto Public Art Program Network, of all the updates that are happening, including this meeting. Within that first additional week, we will have an introductory Zoom webinar info session. So inviting the general public to attend a webinar so they can learn more about the project. They can learn how to use co-urbanize, and gather also their feedback of in that time, in that moment, of how they would want to see public art and how they would want to see this project happen. And as we move forward to the following weeks after that first initial week, second week, we'll be having update webinars where we'll be updating anyone who would like to attend any of the comments that have been submitted, any new comments that have come up. Those will be available for the general public to attend online and at the safety of their own homes. Again, with interactive signs, they'll be placed around, and with social media, our newsletters, and participating within the California Avenue Farmers Market, we'll be able to promote these initiatives, these strategies, so that the participants have many different access points other than in person, where they can engage in a very open and yet organized way, so that they can have their voice in how this project comes about.
Great, thank you, Quinn. So this is the last slide. What I want to share is that we have received so far really great feedback. I mean, the staff, city staff has been very positive with the conversations we've had, both in that focus group and some interaction through online. Artists really are interested in engaging with the community members on both temporary and permanent interactive. and that artists can really play a role during this changing time. So that's it for our presentation. We just really want to hear what all of you think, your comments and questions, and we want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to share where we're at so far.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Barbara, Amanda, and Quinn. Thank you. Were very informative. Any questions or comments from the commission? And we'll start with Nia.
Yes, thank you. That was really well put together. I do have a question I was thinking about, and there's been a lot of discussion on the Art Commissioner about our Percent for Art program. And it reminded me that there are quite a few, I don't know what the rate is right now, but there are quite a few new developments that are happening in the city. And I know in California, there are always things changing. And I was just curious what that conversation, if there is going to be a conversation, because I think those are key individuals and companies that might have a huge impact on the way that our Cal Ave looks like. And I'm not just speaking about businesses, I'm speaking about upcoming developments. And so I was just curious if you could talk a little bit about that as well. And then my other question is, I see there's a lot of obviously social media heavy marketing strategies, which I totally get. And I was just curious, I saw there's tabling at the Cal Ave Farmers Market, but I was just curious, are there other interactive things that you're thinking about that we could be thinking about? It brought to mind a wonderful initiative when we were doing the larger public art master plan, that we had a wonderful interactive art activity on City Hall Plaza, the King Plaza, which I thought really was fun. And so I was just wondering if that's another idea that you've thought about to engage.
To answer that second question, we are totally open to the different engagement activities. Coming onto this project before the shelter in place, that was just the goal of just pushing out these pop-ups, these interactive engagements to have the participants engage and give feedback in very creative ways. I think at this point, with how carefully we're kind of opening back up into the public space, we're definitely open to it, but I think with the recommendations of how the city is opening up now, and as well as the recommendation from your committee, as well as the public art, Palo Alto Public Art Program, we like to take it steady with the farmers market at first, and then open it up to see, because we don't want to risk anything, but we do want to engage.
We get it, Nia. We would love to do all those awesome things because we had great ideas, but yeah, we had to put a little bit of a pause, unfortunately. So, but we appreciate you bringing that up. I hear really great stories from Barbara about that.
And I also just want to add too that I think it's an interesting, I have to remind myself that now is also an interesting time that people are not out engaging with the public as much as they might have. So it's an interesting way for people to think about, like, what do they miss most about being outside and being in the city. So it's another opportunity too. So thank you for your hard work on this.
Thank you, Nia. Lauren, any comments?
It was great to hear about the outreach, and I'm wondering, when does this plan begin, the 6-week campaign begin?
Ideally, the 6-week campaign will begin once we have our business merchant meeting. Once we get the recommendations or the feedback from the business merchants, we'll understand at what capacity they will be at to participate, in addition to what they're already doing, which is a lot. And so within that, we'll be opening that period, that first week, for that kind of like pre-participation with business merchants and artists, and then the following week, that's when it'll open.
Thank you. We'll stay tuned.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Ian, any questions, comments?
Yeah, a comment, and then, well, actually just 2 comments. First, thanks very much for everyone who does jobs that are involved engaging the public, this has been a period of incredible adjustment, really, for everybody, obviously. But clearly, you had to pivot this on the move, and you know, it's just a very difficult thing to do. And thank you for doing it. The quality is there, and on a personal level, I think it's tough to do. I would just a thought, and I'm not the person to offer the solution, but right at the end there, and I'm not fully sure what the wording is for. Maybe it's just for this presentation, but if it's also for the platform itself, for the co-urbanized interface, there was a reference to the changing environment. And it made me think a little bit of this terrible thing you see on television right now, where the ad says, "In these uncertain times," and that's getting mocked widely, because what you should do is call out what those uncertain times are, because saying what they are will influence the responses. It will influence the art that we subsequently have to try to make our city vibrant and inclusive. And so I wonder if when you think about that phrase, and again, I'm not the person to say what it should be, but we're serious. You know, we're obviously dealing with a pandemic that is something we haven't seen in 100 years, and a reckoning with American history that's gone on, addressing 400 years. And so it seems to me that we should try to say more explicitly what the changing environment is. I mean, even if it doesn't need to be, I actually don't want to say what it should be, but I think we should give it some names, probably.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great idea. And it might be really interesting to put it into the context of, as we're reconsidering the nature of public life.
Right, yeah.
Would be a really good way of asking it, and public representation also. That would be an open-ended enough question, and it would also get to the kinds of issues that you're addressing, because you're right, there are a lot of platitudes out there right now.
Thanks, Barbara.
Yeah. Thank you, Ian, for that.
Hey, thank you, Ian. Sinya, any comments or questions?
I just want to say that I really appreciate Ian's points, and I like how Barbara is framing and responding to Ian's comments. I think that makes it really timely. It makes this project seem like we're aware of what's going on, which is greatly appreciated. And kudos to you guys for doing such a difficult job during this time. Thank you.
Sorry, my comments are just echoing what everybody else said. I think Cal Ave will be a really vibrant place after this public art master plan. And I look forward to collaborating with all of you to come up with a beautiful master plan. So thank you all very much. Any other comments or questions? Do we have anybody from the public that wants to address this item? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Barbara, Amanda, and Quinn, and I look forward to seeing you in the future.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go on to the next item, which is a discussion regarding upcoming council agenda items related to public art. And Lisa, if you want to kick this off.
Great, thank you so much. So there have been quite a few items that have come to council in recent months, and I think every commissioner has reached out to me at different points wanting to discuss it. And so I wanted to put this on the agenda, and the chair and the vice chair agreed that this was a good idea, so everyone could just talk about it in a very transparent, open way. And so in particular, there are 3 different items that have come to council and that will be coming back to council soon. So the first has to do with the council report on board and commissions. There's an ad hoc committee. And so February 24th, the council asked the ad hoc committee to explore annual work plans and processes, term limits, move to a single interview period with the backup in the fall, to disband the library advisory commission, and explore what other cities do for seniors and sustainability commissions. And so I put that out there for if anyone wants to discuss that. The second item that came up is in May, the council made a motion to reduce the number of commissioners on the HRC and the PAC from 7 to 5 members. And actually I just checked the agenda that was released today for Monday. So that item is on the council agenda for this Monday for them to consider. Let me see if I can pull it back up. It is on the consent calendar. It is item 29 on the consent calendar. The council is trying to get a lot done before they go on break. So these agendas get pretty lengthy. So item 29, adoption of an ordinance to reduce number of Human Relations Commission and Public Art Commission members from 7 to 5. So as it's on consent, it is not something they're scheduled to discuss unless I can't remember if it's 3 council members. I think it may be 3 council members. It could be 4. Chair Miyagi is telling me 3. Could pull it off consent to have more of a discussion around that item. And then the final item, of course, took place in the budget hearings. That at the very end of the budget hearings, there was a motion made. Let me get the language just right. Council made a motion for staff to return with a report on the possible suspension of the percent for art ordinance and reevaluate it at mid-year. So that is something because there wasn't technically action taken on this budget cycle, but we are going back to the council and waiting for confirmation on the date in August with an informational report on the percent for art ordinances, what they fund, and what that would look like if they determined they wanted to suspend them for a period of time. So those are the items. And with that, I will turn it back to Chair Miyagi to lead this discussion.
Okay, thank you, Elise. And let's keep the 2 items, the reduction in the number of commission members and the budget, as 2 separate items. I think if we try to overlap, it might be a little tough. So let's discuss first the reduction of the commission from 7 to 5 members. And Nia, why don't we start with you, because you had already made some comments to this.
Sure. So, it's interesting because for a long time, I've noticed that there have been commissioners who I know really want to be on the commission and are very passionate about it, but things have come up. Life comes up sometimes. And so, I was thinking about something as we were having this, that Elise was talking about reducing the numbers again. And I thought to myself, it might be interesting if possible to figure out why we're having a hard time. There is a difficulty, they say, recruiting new commissioners, if that is, if there are some that have had to drop off or need to drop off for whatever reason. But something I was thinking about is is it possible on the staff side, if we were to reduce the number of meetings that we had, would that make it easier for more people to be available? So we have more commissioners. I personally am going to toot my own horn for a minute. I have realized that this is a once a month activity that I put on my calendar, meaningful activity that I knew when I signed up that I could do. Maybe once in a while something comes up where I can't make a meeting, but I really pride myself in saying, I'm going to make it my goal to go to every single meeting every month, because it's only once a month. And so I don't know if that is an issue or that the candidates are hard to find. I know the city council is the one that approves the new commissioners. So maybe we have to think about how commissioners are chosen. I know the city council, that's their regulations, which I understand and I actually appreciate, that we're not the ones choosing the next commissioners. But at the same time, maybe is there a way that needs to be restructured our meetings to enable more people to maybe be more active and want to be able to be involved, if that's the issue. It might not be the issue, I don't know, but just something I'm thinking out loud about. But I do think the reason I think that the number should be higher is just diversity wise, that I think the more people talking about art on the commission, the more diverse spectrum of art that we'll have. And so that's my primary reason. So.
Hey, thank you, Nia. Ian, any comments?
Sure. The couple of the ideas that came up, actually, I have a couple questions. One of which is why we meet monthly per Nia's question, and whether we consider other structures. A second, Ben, you seem to be on top of this, but I think at least obviously you and Nadia are too. If they take it off consent, does it reopen the public conversation, including for those of us who failed to figure out the technology the first time they were having the public conversation? And then third, and more substantively speaking, although it gets less to solutions, I guess, I echo entirely Nia's statement. I sent an email that I think is consistent with it to the council, but it hadn't taken fully into account the conversation they had around the mural that we just voted on. And I assume most of us watched that, but the council was 7 or 8 hours into a session. And as Councilmember Tanaka said, this wasn't the abnormal for them to be so. And they took the decision to put the Public Arts Commission on the lead on this, which in some ways was to devolve it, because there was some discussion about whether or not it should sit within the council itself. And it strikes me that we really do have to figure out how to make the case on Monday, if it's possible, that if they are going to give the PAC more responsibilities, particularly at a moment, this crucial moment in American history for the reasons that we discussed briefly a couple minutes ago, that we can't do it with a reduction in perspective. It seems absolutely impossible for us to meet the charge that they actually gave to us if they're simultaneously cutting the perspectives on the commission itself. So I would welcome any, particularly whether or not it means it reopens to the public, so we can make that case if they take it off consent.
Thank you, Ian. You make a really good point there. And the council giving the Public Art Commission the lead on the Black Lives Matter mural, I think it kind of plays into our hands too, about having the number to be at 7. The more you have, the better it is. And we're here to advise the council on public art matters. And the smaller body you have, the less that you can really advise the council on, because you don't have the point of view from many points of view that gets diminished. So I think that's a good point. Hey, Lauren, any comments?
I don't have much to add, but I do agree, even in this discussion, we are missing the voices of Jim and Amanda, and I'm sure you guys are hearing their voices in your heads, right? We need to have those other commissioners on hand, and imagine if our quorum was 3. That just seems ridiculous. So I'll ask Elise and Nadia, how do we get them to take it off consent calendar so there can be a discussion? Do we just write each individual council member and ask them to take it off the consent calendar and put it back into discussion? Is that what we do? How do we do this?
Yeah, that's a great question. Of course, each of you as individual members of the commission can express yourselves the way Commissioner Klaus did by writing to the council. I'm also recognizing that, especially in this time of budget, I just looked at it, there are 10 separate packets of public letters to the council, and to estimate that they're actually going to have the time to digest all of those and look at them all is asking a lot of them, and they've had a ton of meetings. So this is a council that does seem to respond to people calling in. And I would think that needs to happen at the beginning of the meeting before the consent agenda is voted on. Usually it's one of the early items and they vote on the entire consent agenda. So I think both emailing and calling the council if you wanted to request for them to pull it. The other option is if you wanted to consider as a body, if the commission wanted to put together a uniform statement, whether or not that carries more weight than individuals coming forward, I can't really say.
Well, I know I've also written to the council, and Ben has as well, and there may be other individual public art commissioners who have written. So maybe we go as a body and write them and address the council if people are willing to do that. And is that the right process, is pulling us off the consent calendar so it goes back to discussion? Is that what needs to be done?
Yes, so that's, otherwise they don't really discuss it. If they pull it off consent, then it can be discussed a bit further.
Okay.
Otherwise they vote on the consent calendar as a whole.
And they just say 5 commissioners.
Yeah, that's it. They just say 5
Okay.
without any discussion. So I think it's that's what we really have to do is try to get this pulled off consent. Hey, Sinya, any comments?
I think Sinya's been having a few technical difficulties. Commissioner Shen, you may want to consider maybe logging in on your phone. Or we do have a quorum on camera. If you just want to shut off your camera, that might help as well.
Elise, I don't know if this is appropriate to ask you, but do you recall when you were a commissioner that it was difficult to have a quorum? I mean, I think we've had a quorum actually almost every meeting, but you've been around for a little while. Have you noticed a change that we should be maybe aware of or thinking about in terms of commissioners being available?
It actually, I mean, making quorum by and large has not been a huge issue. Like you said, I think most of the commissioners do schedule it on their calendar and try and hold that date. And the date is in the Muni language. So it does say how often each board and commission meets. And I believe it specifies the 3rd Thursday in that code. So if and when that gets opened back up, that would be a time we could potentially revisit that.
Okay. Thank you, Elise. Sinya, are you on? Okay, I'm going to go ahead with my comments. Nia, to your comments about meetings, maybe if there were 4 to 6 meetings a year instead of monthly, that might help with the attendance. Either do it every other month or once a quarter, maybe have meetings. I don't know how that would impact certain things that have come forward, especially with budget and finance, but that might help to recruit people, because I know I've been on other commissions and boards where there was an attendance requirement, and if you missed so many meetings in a calendar year, you were automatically off. So, you know, that's one thing that you might want to consider, but I think it's just a big mistake reducing it from 7 to 5. It just cuts down the number of voices that speak. And I think Lauren was saying, if you have a bare quorum of 3 and you vote on something and the vote is 2 to 1, then you got 2 people carry a lot of weight. And I don't think that's the intent of having a smaller number. And I can't see where there's any financial gain of having a smaller commission, because whether you have 5 or 7 members, you still have to, the staff has to still do the same amount of work. So I don't see any cost cuttings there. With recruiting, they recruit once a year, but why not keep the applications on file for 2 or 3 years and go back to the people and see if they're still interested. I know in other cities too, they have recruitment problems too. In Palo, it's not unique to Palo, it's every city that has that problem. So, but then these commissions were established to advise the council on certain matters. And as we found with the Black Lives Matter, they brought right to the Public Art Commission, because that was they felt was the expertise to carry that on. Hey, Sinya, are you on and you have any comments?
Yeah, can you hear me okay? I'm back on video.
Okay.
Hello? Hello?
We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can
Yes.
hear you.
Oh gosh, I'm having such difficulties. I apologize. But I appreciate everybody's feedback. I have very similar to the reduction in the commissioner number. And I like what Lee said, which is if it's possible for us to not just provide input individually, but also to provide input collectively on this issue, because it sounds like everybody is, perhaps that could, get more attention. If possible, I think that would be, I would be very supportive of that.
Hey, thank you, Senya. Any other comments?
Hello?
Yes, Senya, any other comments?
No, that's it. Did you hear
Okay.
me?
Thank you. Thank you very much. So
Thank you.
I think what has come out is individually, we have to contact the council members to try to get the item pulled off the consent calendar and write letters, phone calls, and also if we come up with a unified letter to send the council, I think would really help as well. So I don't know if we want to have a volunteer to try to write that letter, or I can, with help from staff, try to write that letter and get that off, because we have to get it off by Monday, I guess, right? At least we have to get it Monday into council. So
Yes,
we
so
can do
I'm
that.
looking, some information is just coming into me. And Kristen, I don't know if you want to jump in, that there would be 2 readings of the ordinance. I didn't see it linked there, but maybe I didn't get it to come up. And that Monday is just the first reading. Can you clarify?
Sure, that's right. So whenever we're doing a change to the municipal code or an ordinance, there's a first reading of council, which will be Monday night. And then typically we come back 2 weeks later for the second reading, but because council's on break for the month of July, we will be coming back in August for the second reading. And then I believe there's a 30-day period for public comment. And then after that 30 days is when the ordinance is actually changed. So I just wanted to clarify that Monday night is not the last time you'll be able to provide your public comments on this.
Okay, because I'm looking at the agenda now, and I don't see the ordinance language linked there. It just is listed as an item.
Do you mean there's no staff report? I'm not.
I don't see an attachment to it. It just says adoption of an ordinance to reduce the number of Human Relations Commission and Public Art Commission members from 7 to 5.
Oh, I think you're looking at the one that includes, it's the packet, so you have to scroll down to the item. It lists the package page numbers.
It's a big packet. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The question I have is, after the second reading of this, and then you said there was a 30-day period for public comment, and then the ordinance goes into effect. What if they get enough public comment to where they don't want to enact the ordinance? What would happen? Could they then pull it out, or I'm not sure how that would happen. What would happen?
That's a great question, Chair, and I'm not sure if I have the answer for that.
Okay.
But we can provide the whole process to you between now and Monday, just so you have it all in front of you and you're aware of how this will be handled.
All right, great. Thank you very much.
Can I sorry, can I just jump in quickly? So Kristen, do you still encourage us to call on Monday?
Absolutely.
Yes. Or tomorrow.
And that's, oh, I thought it had to be in front of the meeting, like during the meeting time. No, we can call.
No, you have to do it before, so there's a request to pull it off consent.
Okay, I still think, why would it hurt to submit a letter from the commission now rather than waiting till August? But let me know what your thoughts are.
No, I don't think it would hurt now. Do it now and in August. Oh, the more the better, I think, in a case like this.
Right. I think it's best to get in front of the process instead of halfway through or at the end of the process.
Any other comments on this? I think the consensus from all of us is not to reduce the commission. All right, so let's now discuss the second part of this, which is the budget discussions and suspending the percent for public art, municipal public art, and the private percent for public art. Suspended for, I think it was 2 years was the motion, the original motion. So any comments on that? Let's start with Lauren.
I was actually surprised that they could do that. And what does that mean? Does that mean that the percent for art just goes away altogether, or the percent for art funds get used in a different way by the city, which I wouldn't think would be legally possible? Can someone clarify what getting rid of percent for art actually means? And it wasn't just municipal, but it was also private development percent for art, correct?
Yes, and the wording was actually very vague. So we took it, interpreted as both, that they need to be evaluated. So it actually is kind of an opportunity to help educate some of the council members who are not familiar with both ordinances and the fact that they are both ordinances, they're not just policies. So as with switching the Muni code for reduction of 7 to 5, there are quite a few steps that have to go into place. And so that's why this informational item in August is actually, it's a good opportunity for us to clarify for the council how those funds are derived, what kinds of things they go toward, how are they used, and what kind of work does the Public Art Commission and the Public Art Program undertake.
Okay, thank you. Lauren, anything else?
Elise?
Sinya? Shen?
Yeah, sorry to bother you. Do you know if the genesis for this 1% issue is really driven by the economic impact of COVID, or was there something else?
Well, I think, you know, the council has had to make some extremely difficult decisions and cuts to the budget. And so I believe that in this process, they were really going through line by line. And because the art and public spaces budget reflects not only that year's allocation of percent for art that was estimated a year ago, but also the rollover fund. So, you know, there's over $500,000 that's already encumbered in other projects that are underway. So it's also the rollover funds in addition to the percent for art funds. And it doesn't account for the number of CIP projects that were moved out of this fiscal year. So that number appeared quite high and will be significantly lower once the budget cycle is finished. So I think that's what caught their attention.
Yeah. I mean, my concern is, I think, you know, the starting point may be a correct one, but in actuality, I think it may have unintended consequences. Like you said, I think numerically speaking, it may not be an accurate reflection, number one. Number two, you know, is the 1% really a restriction on, you know, does it really disincentivize people from developing? And I would think that there will be other issues that would drive people's investment decisions, and not just the 1%. So it just feels like it needs to be further fleshed out. It feels a little reactive to me.
Okay, thank you, Sinya. Ian?
It's a really good point. I mean, if you watch the debate, it also came quite late in a process. And this one was more deliberative, and in some ways it's exactly what you want. But just, it strikes me that the budgetary crisis is obviously real. The hope would be that the council members make the decision about how to address it with a full understanding of what the percent for art programs are. And I don't think the debate reflected a full understanding of that at the moment. And so while the budgetary pressure is what it is, and there will be cuts, unfortunately, because that's the way the city is experiencing it, and most importantly, the people who work for the city, I think we have to have it as a goal as residents, but most importantly as commissioners, and our responsibility to make sure that they understand how much cutting will actually help, as opposed to looking at a piece of art that's already been paid for essentially and thinking that you're going to get that money back.
Thank you, and that's a really good point, and I think that leads to educating the council on what public art and how the public art funds are spent, because it became painfully clear that a few of the council members didn't understand how the money was spent, and how you want to integrate the public art into the building and not just have plop art or stick-on art that it's done after the fact. So, you know, that's, I think, a twofold thing about education and how the money is spent. So it's a really good point. Nia, any comments?
I was gonna just agree with everybody that I also feel like there was a disconnect between what I thought percent for art and municipal funds are and what the council, many of them did. So I hope we will be able to provide them with better information. And I also do want to ask though, at present, I know there's construction going on now. So I guess if they were to, first of all, I just want to clarify, I know that as it stands right now, the percent for art, technically they can't take it. Is that correct from us? Or I just want to, I think we need, I would like to be clarified on that, exactly what the rules are. And then my other question would be, if something did happen for the percent for art, when does it go into effect? I hope it doesn't, but if it did, when would it go into effect?
Well, those are all great questions. And we are going to have to sort of feel our way through this very closely with the legal team as well, about what can and can't happen. So as of right now, there have been no changes to the ordinance. It would have to go through a process with a couple of readings. So it would be kind of a lengthy process before the ordinance would be able to be amended to change. So we don't have all of the answers to your questions right now, but it's unknown if they decided to make those changes and it was only for a year or two, how much of an impact that would really have and at what point that would start. So there's still a lot of unknowns. We just have to go have this study session and have discussions with legal and see what that's going to look like.
When you say the study session, is council inviting you to come forward and discuss what percent for art is? How do we educate council? And can we help with that?
So the motion was for staff to come back with a report on what that would look like. So that's what we're intending to do in August. We're trying to get on the agenda. I've mentioned how packed this agenda is in these next few weeks. You can imagine as soon as they come back, there's a bunch of people who want to get on there too. But it would be a study session. So it would be an opportunity in a staff report for us to lay out what the municipal percent for art ordinance is, what kinds of things it is funded, how that process works with the budgeting and the Public Art Commission, and then a separate one for the private development.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Elise. And I think the private percent is a minefield, trying to suspend that and with the monies and what would happen with the monies. I think that's really a problem. And I'm just going to come out. I think they'd be very short-sighted. The council would be very short-sighted by suspending these programs, because look at the BLM mural that we've been asked to lead. That is part of our public life. And when you go out and you run into public art, you know, it makes you smile, or maybe it doesn't make you smile, but at least there's something for you to go out and see. And you know, I've always said the soul of a city is its public art. So, you know, all that we can do, and again, this is one of those things that we need to write letters and call council members about this and keep at it and just keep that bug in their ear about this, because otherwise it'll just go away and if it's suspended for 2 years, and I think that was the original proposal, to suspend it for 2 years. What happens to the public art program during that period? The projects that have already started, yes, will complete, but no new projects will come online. What happens to staff? There's a whole bunch of other ramifications that really need to be thought through and what can happen, because once something is suspended, sometimes it's very hard to start it back up again. So, those are things that we need to think about and get our pens and pencils out and start writing letters on both these items, both the reduction and the suspension of public art money. Any other comments on either of these two items? Lauren?
Sorry, I just want to circle back. Are we going to write a letter from us, the commission? As
Yeah.
individuals, I think we will.
Yeah,
But how about
individually, and we can either ask for somebody to write the letter, volunteer to write letter, or I can start writing the letter and then send it to the commission members and have them make comments on that.
I just want to jump in real quick. I would need to check on the process for that, so we don't have a Brown Act.
Right.
I think we
Right.
can't Google Doc that, right? Because then we're all meeting on that page, right? So I guess we have to go.
Or if,
I guess, right?
Yeah,
if Steph can
serial
just read
meeting.
it and then compile the comments or something. So let me look into that.
Okay, thank you, Elise.
Thank you.
All right.
And Ben, just another option to consider would be to, since there have already been a number of personal letters already written, to grab one, copy and paste paragraphs very simply, and have everyone sign on to one or something like that. If we face this organizational challenge of the Brown Act.
Right. Okay. Good point, Ian. Thank you.
And I might say, Ian, your letter was very well written.
Yes. Yes.
Certainly better than my email that I fired off. Ben, yours was very well written too.
So maybe the Ian's is a good starting point, and we go with that. All right. Thank you all very much for that discussion. I know it affects us very deeply in both ways. So thank you for that discussion and your thoughts about this. I know you've been doing a lot of thinking about this, so thank you very much for that. And let's go on to the next item, which is item 6, which is a Code Art 2 update. Elise?
Wow, it's been a while since we've been able to talk about code art. So I think the last time the commission met, you all approved the allocation of funds from our pooled private development percent for art for the 6 urban interventions. We had a lot of great proposals. Just before the lockdown, we were able to hold a selection panel, and Commissioner Klaus was part of that process. We also had our director of IT, Darren Numoto. We had Matthew Passmore from Moore Lab. We had Chris Treggiari, artist, on there, and we had Charlie Wiedans, the CEO of the Chamber, and myself on that panel. Some really amazing creative solutions. And so we went through, we were able to rank the proposals. We had 6 very strong ones. We had 2 that were sort of on the cusp. So if anyone dropped out, they would be the next alternate in. And basically the group scored them based on quality and strength of the proposed urban intervention, a dynamic shared experience, something that would draw the public and encourage dynamic interactivity, engagement, and participation, potential to activate a site using technology, and a strong nighttime presence, because as you'll recall, we were looking at having code art in the first few days of October of 2020. So each of the artists' teams was awarded a $6,000 commission, which will be all inclusive. So they've started more detailed design, and in fact, working on design refinement in light of COVID. So we've had a lot of discussions with these teams about if we were to proceed this October, what might that look like from a comfort level? What kind of requirements might we need to have on limiting the number of people, creating for social distancing? ensuring that the proposals go to low or no touch. And as time moves on, we are definitely considering that we may very well need to move this to 2021. Unless we have an army of assistants to help us with all those logistics, it's not really going to be feasible. So I think that's going to be really apparent in the next couple of weeks whether or not we can proceed. However, those amendments to the designs that the teams are making, I think still will be a concern in 2021 as well. People are not going to be comfortable all touching touchpads or putting on shared VR goggles or any of those kinds of things. So with that, Nadia, do you want to walk them through these, or do you want me to do it?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to move the presentation on. I think it just kind of froze a little bit here. There we go. Okay, so just a quick overview of the 6 artist teams that we ended up selecting and already under contracts. So right now we're looking at a conceptual rendering for a sound installation with a working title, Hydralla. So this installation is proposed by Daniel Chen and Nick Stowers. So Daniel is from Sacramento and Nick is from Oakland. So this is a motion activated sound installation that will be, and what you're looking at is a very conceptual, so first rendering, and it's already evolving from this visual that we're showing to you. So it's no touch, but the soundscape will be activated by individuals interacting or walking underneath or nearing the installation. It will trigger different nodes. So the sound will be working. It's the same principle as and the exact word escapes me. So it's like this phenomenon of like like a group of birds flight in the air and just kind of like just pivoting from one angle to another with this surgical precision and just distance from each other. So it never, like the distance between individual birds never changes, but it just creates this beautiful moving flock of birds. So the technology that the artists are applying to the soundscape and how it's going to be moving on around the scape is the same sort of principle of that phenomenon. So also to be said that we're scaping a number of locations throughout downtown. However, we're not sharing the locations with you today because we're still figuring this out. We're not able to have conversations with a lot of building owners and merchants. So this part is still in the works. The second theme, actually, that's not a team, that's an individual artist. And this will, Amor Munoz. And Amor is an international artist. She's from Mexico City. So this installation is titled Coded Architecture 3. So what you're looking at is this binary coded message that will be this immersive evolving mural. So there's actually a hidden message coded in this in the black and white panels. So the artist is working on figuring out a way to actually have this message evolve and continue throughout all 3 days of installation. So the public can come back and just continue deciphering, to decipher the message, hidden in the mural. Okay, so our next group. So many of you may remember Ben Flateau. He was on one of the artist teams in our original Code Art with their interactive installation Ghost in the Machine. So here Ben is partnering with Alex Sam and Tong. So they are from a Palo Alto based architect group. And so they're proposing this really interesting game-based intervention titled IO. So what are you looking at? The visuals, again, that was a very sort of first rendering pre-COVID. So it was very touch-based. So the team is working out solutions now that it's would be minimum touch or no touch at all, but will with the same exciting collaborative gaming elements. So essentially you can see there are two input walls and individuals on side A on the input wall would be sort of activating different different cubes or nodes, and then that would cause a message or some reaction on the output wall. So essentially it's a collective game, and people will have to collaborate and just kind of like figure out the right answer as they just interact with one of the walls. So so this is for IO. Cosmic Cannon by Jeffrey Yip. Jeffrey is another Oakland-based artist. So this would be another sound urban intervention. So you see this pyramid-like structure. There's a laser beaming onto the pyramid. Originally, the artist was envisioning sort of like this, having those 4 touch stations. So anybody who approached the installation might just push one of the touch buttons, and it would just start like activate certain the soundscapes. And as people collaborate around the pyramid, they essentially just create this musical experiences together. So right now the artist is also experimenting with different low touch and no touch experiences, which would be just as engaging and exciting for the audience. Okay, walking you to the next one, Color Currents by Corey Barr. So this is, think of it as a dynamic interactive mural that, passersby become part of sort of on the canvas of the mural. So there'll be motion activated, motion nodes, activated with the murals. So you can see once a certain motion will cause appear and flow a different color scheme, and then motions to the left, motions to the right will sort of trigger different commands and behaviors of the mural. There is a program or it's sort of like a behavior when multiple people interact with the murals and what it happens. So it's constantly in flux, constantly evolving, and it really encourages participation, play, and dance, if you will. And then finally, another digital interactive mural, Luminous Growth, by a team of Lisa Koch, Jamie Baines, and Phil Spittler. So this local team is originally proposed this sort of multifaceted interactive urban intervention when what you're looking at is the digital mural of the wall, digital mural on the wall of this evolving and sort of pulsing and breathing life. It's sort of activated by a time-lapse video of crystal growth, right? You can see on the rendering there is a person driving sort of the visuals. So the idea is that members of the public could interact, say, with an interface and just kind of travel within the mural, and explore different parts of the plane that's in front of the eyes. So like, it's going to be like slowly, moving from one side to another. You can zoom in and just kind of bring your attention to what's going on in a particular case. And then in the meantime, you have this beautifully choreographed, time-lapse video, of life of the city, portrayed as, through this expedited growth of crystals. Also, originally, one of the aspects of this installation was engaging the audience by sharing VR goggles, but it's one of those moments, like Elise brought earlier, that's probably not feasible in our new realm. So the team is currently exploring alternatives, how to create that overall experience in a safe manner for all involved. And then I'm not sure if you can see well enough, it's kind of obscured by sort of the green triangle in the presentation. But another aspect of this installation is also a tabletop, like sculpture with those crystals, that will essentially, it's a cityscape, right? So it's this futuristic utopian vision of a city, and so the mural is sort of like a projection of the sculpture on site. So it's another way to experience the artwork. So these are the teams. I believe this was, yes, like that was the last team that we are currently working with. So really excited to be working with all of these teams. As I mentioned, we are, the contracts have been signed. We are actively, developing their designs and just talking through sort of possible concerns and challenges and how they can be addressed in their design development. We're also anticipating to conduct a Zoom code art group meetup where all the teams, all 6 urban intervention teams and also the lead artist, Marpy Studio, will be able to meet up and present their projects to each other and discuss any potential questions or challenges, or sort of like how to life hacks, sort of the subjects that they might have, and just have this collaborative session. And also another aspect of that group meeting would be introducing our event coordinator, and who would be able to really learn firsthand about the projects, individual installations, and understand how best accommodate for social distancing practices, and just facilitate this festival in a safe and appropriate manner. Yeah, so Elise, back to you. Or commissioners, please let me know if you have any questions about any particular installation.
Okay, thank you, Nadia. Ian, do you have any questions or comments?
Thanks, Ben. No, I'll just say that as everyone, all the commissioners know, serving the committee is not an active autocracy. You have to have a faith in the process as much as your own perspective. And so that always starts with having an unbelievable selection to work from. And as always, the staff provided that. And so I just would like to mention how many great options they did provide the committee.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Sinya, any comments?
No, thank you so much for the good work.
Our pleasure.
Thank you. Lauren?
I'm pretty excited about it. Thank you. And I'm glad you have someone who's going to be managing the process, because it's going to be pretty intense, I think, but it's going to be great. So thank you.
And Nia, any comments, questions?
Not at this moment. Thank you. That looks exciting.
All right. Thank you both for your hard work on this, and Ian sitting on that panel. Some great things will come out of this, and if it gets delayed until next year, I think it'll be even better. So thank you all very much. Does anybody want to take a break, a short break here for about 5 minutes or so to stretch your legs and whatever you want to do? And what time is it now? It's
8:58 now.
Take a break. Why don't we come back at 9:05, and we'll pick up with the last 2 items.
Okay.
And
All
those
right,
should be
thank you.
fairly brief updates too.
I'm sorry?
Those should be fairly brief updates too.
Okay, good. All right. Thank you.
So cool.
Nia, you have to share.
Next in-person meeting, I'll bring some.
It looks too good.
Okay.
Right.
So
This, we're waiting for Sinya, and then be ready to go on the last two items.
Hi, I'm back.
All right, thank you, Sinya. All right, item number 7, which is the temporary public art for King Plaza. Elise?
Actually, this one's Nadia's. It's an update on the Arbor project by Adam Marcus.
So commissioners, I appreciate it's already after 9 p.m., so I'm going to keep it very short. Let me share the screen with the exciting rendering of the latest design development by Adam Marcus. As you recall, the artist in his initial design development was approved by the Public Art Commission back in February 2019. At that meeting, commissioners submitted some feedback and comments in regards with further sort of ways to explore the design for the installation. So we communicated that feedback back to the artist. So he had a lot of great feedback and comments to work with. And here I am presenting to you the finalized design of Arbor. So just to very briefly to kind of walk you through the concept of the visuals. And let me just perhaps do this view. So as you recall, Arbor is a data spatialization of the urban forest in Palo Alto. The artwork will consist of 120 laser cut powder coated metal ribs arranged radially. So the artwork uses the database of over 45,000 public trees in the city of Palo Alto open data portal as the basis for a collective three-dimensional map of this one aspect of the city's ecology. The trees are represented by bumps on the outer edge. So the zones, outer edge of the fins that comprise this installation. So the zones with more trees result in ribs with more relief. On the inside edge, the negative voids will correspond with the trees on the opposite direction. So the ribs are arranged in a circular form, gradually changing in height and profile to create a dynamic form which is different from one side to another. We're thinking to position this installation in the hardscape of the plaza. What's different from the original design that it is more interactive now from the perspective that now viewers can actually experience the sculpture from walking on the inside of the circle and interact sort of with the play of light and shadow, multiple sort of shades of color, in this case green and yellow. So we're still working on sort of finalizing the colorscape and kind of what an individual sort of shapes of fins and what that represent, what story it tells about the city. So Arbor looks to historical examples of optical devices that operate radially, such as the zoetrope or cyclorama, both of which are radial geometry to create dynamic spatial conditions. So individually, each rib represents the density of trees in its corresponding zone of the city. And collectively, the ribs coalesce into a singular yet dynamic form that becomes a spatial relief map of the city's shared network of trees. So it's, one of the comments that the commission had last year, that it's really important to kind of, have informative didactic graphic that would really explain sort of the concept behind the visuals of the installation. So Adam is currently considering different ways, exploring different ways to integrate dynamic didactics on site. So one of the options we're considering is actually having some sort of adhesive vinyl, or our new material that we're excited about, the aluminum graphics, which would sort of point the viewers to certain areas outside of King Plaza to kind of explain and sort of explain the data behind the visuals of the installation, right? So it'd be really interesting to trace what's going on with the tree data in my particular neighborhood and how it reflects sort of like maybe in relation to some other neighborhoods in Palo Alto, right? So in terms of the timeline for this installation, originally we were hoping to coincide this installation in King Plaza with Code Art and have it installed prior to Code Art in September 2020. So with the shelter-in-place order, we were unable to go forward with the originally stated schedule. So before Adam's installation comes to King Plaza, we'll have Puzzle Calzadas, a 3-month installation made out of upcycled turf, as you recall. So we're still working out the exact timeline for this installation, but sometime in the fall of 2020, a little later than September, this project will come to King Plaza. So let me know if you have any questions. I just want to be mindful of everybody's time.
Okay, thank you, Nadia. Senya, any comments, questions?
No, I'm just glad that things are progressing.
All right,
yes, absolutely.
Mia?
Thank you.
Same with Senya.
Okay. Ian?
No need, thanks.
Hey, and Lauren?
I'm really glad there's going to be a little bit of explanation about this sculpture, because it's so cool and it's beautiful, but I would have a hard time explaining about the density of the trees and everything. So I'm glad that Palo Alto will learn a little bit more about how it was created. So thank you.
Yeah, one question thank you, Lauren. One question I have is, can there be a tie-in to that display board that's in the lobby of City Hall with the colors and to explain that?
A conversation, Susan Nardul's conversation. Well, absolutely. We were able to promote and bring awareness about our previous temporary installations in King Plaza. So I don't see why we couldn't do the same with this upcoming installation. So
okay,
yes,
good.
absolutely.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you very much. Let's go to the last item on the agenda, which is temporary public art at the Palo Alto Art Center. And my one comment about this is I got an email saying that the thing had died out there. And at first I thought it was the artist that had died and not the sculpture itself. So I'm glad that the artist is still with us and the sculpture is going away.
Yeah.
And Elise, do you have the lead on this?
My apologies for any alarm that may have raised. I realized as soon as you sent me that message, yeah, I could see how someone might think that. So apologies to you and to Patrick Dougherty, who, as far as I know, is very much alive and well. So as been mentioned, the Patrick Dougherty, a section of it actually fell and it compromised the rest of the integrity of the piece. So it needed to be mulched. We had been in conversation with the Art Center about a new collaboration because we collaborated on the Dougherty. We contributed funding and our public art experience, and the foundation and their donors brought the rest of the funding to make it all happen. So we were talking about what might be next, and we weren't sure yet. We were thinking about some sort of infrastructure where it could be sort of an outdoor museum type. And as the COVID environment sort of came in and we realized that some people are not going to be comfortable going inside the Art Center's doors for a while, that solution made more sense than ever. They do have a donor that has approached them about sort of bringing back a portion of Susan O'Malley's project. Susan O'Malley was part of the exhibit when the Art Center reopened, the Advice Project. And so she went around Palo Alto and interviewed almost 100 people, I believe, and asked, what advice would you give your 80-year-old self? And what advice would you give your 8-year-old self? And those posters were printed and distributed throughout Palo Alto for a period of time. And as you can see, many of them, they're very optimistic. They bring hope, they bring joy. And so the idea that we're working with now is we're working with Susan O'Malley's estate. Unfortunately, she has passed away since she did that project at the Art Center, to potentially have the infrastructure on Embarcadero, roughly where the Dougherty was, and be able to mount 3 of her artworks. We haven't determined which 3 as of yet, approximately 7 feet by 5 feet. So they would be visible to cars and of course to pedestrians as they come, and also have a run of approximately 5 different works that could be printed on small posters and distributed to the community. So people could post them in their windows and neighborhoods. So it becomes this sort of community-wide hopeful artwork. And so we haven't worked out all the budgetary items at this point, and we're still seeking the permission of the estate to move forward with our proposal. But we do anticipate potentially coming back to the commission with an allocation of funding to partner on this.
And thank you, Elise. Any questions? Ian, any questions?
I actually do have a really quick question, and this is wonky or geeky or whatever, but Robert Venturi and Denise Brown did great work on speeds and signs with regard to Las Vegas, and I'm curious about the speed limit on the Embarcadero in relationship to a 7x5. Like I assume Public Works or Public Safety, somebody would give some thought to that. But is it a natural fit? It almost sounds like it would be. And clearly, like a 2x2 on Embarcadero wouldn't work. And stop signs obviously take this into consideration, but they use the shape to help us with it. What's the thinking about the way the speed works on there versus the layout? And I ask it in part because there's an artistic sensibility, but also I'm cognizant of the question we got about the Lewis Street cod from the council itself with regards to like kids being distracted when they cross the street, perhaps. And of course, you and Ben at least had answers to that in the ways in which wayfinding and tech makes it safer. But it wouldn't shock me if there was another question from someone somewhere about the relationship between signage and driving.
Mm-hmm. I think that's it's an excellent question. It is not the first time that we have had an artwork out there that is in a signage format. So we did also have a project by Anthony DeScenza, and there were approximately 25 various street signs that had different things on them, also facing Embarcadero. As you, I know you cycle a lot, but for people who are in their cars, it's a frequent spot where they end up stopped. So but it is an excellent and very valid point. So so I very much appreciate it. The infrastructure we're looking at, FYI, is something that would be removable. So it would slide down into some pegs and be secured, but it could be removable and reused. So we could potentially use this for additional artworks in the future, instead of just having to scrap it and then start all over. So that's one of the exciting elements of this, is it could eventually be a double-sided experience. So pedestrians get to see the backside that the folks in their cars don't get to see.
All right, thank you, Elise. Lauren, any questions?
No, I don't. I like the colorful artwork, and I think it's interesting that a person has come forward to bring this project back. It's great.
Cinya, any comments or questions?
No additional comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Nia, any comments or questions?
Just excited. I think this is going to be a really fun, different project. And I will say it's ironic because I was just thinking about right now our civil rights movements that are happening again. And this reminds me a lot of the 60s and the 50s and the 70s, and you know, people holding up their signs. So it's it's fun, and the coloring is great. So thank you.
All right. Oh, so that's an example of.
Yeah, so this was actually the project in Palo Alto. So here you can see it. This is on California Avenue. And this was some of the advice. I personally had to listen to your mom, be friendly to people and don't pull people's hair. But you can see there's a real playfulness and a love and a shared wisdom there that I think is really timely and heartening. And so we had some of them up and down Embarcadero Road before as well.
All right.
I just wanted to share with that. I was just able to find the link.
All right, good. Thank you. Thank you very much. And Nia, to your point, I grew up in the 60s, so I know what you're talking about. All right, so now the next item on the agenda is public letters. And do we have any public letters? Or they have been distributed to us? Is that what came in the packet?
Yeah,
Okay.
I believe I hyperlinked the public letters with the agenda earlier. So.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you.
And they're the same ones that were forwarded to the commissioners previously.
All right, thank you. Any announcements? Hey, for the next meeting, our calendar next meeting will be July 16th. And will that be a Zoom meeting as well?
I would suspect so.
Okay.
And we're good at it.
Yeah. Hey, thank you all for your time. I know it was a big agenda, and just the stuff that had piled up over time, and the pandemic, and then BLM came into it, and I think we've really done well with the agenda tonight. So thank you all for your time, and let's get out to the council members and get our letters written and phone calls made and all that, and then we'll see you next month. So thank you all and stay safe.
Thank you, Ben.
All
Thanks,
right.
everyone. It was really good to see you.
All right. Good night.
So good to see everybody. Good night.